Is the commissioner here? See emails. He's on his way. What is it? Never too late. You remember that. She was really excited. Well, that's good.
Okay, FYI, we're on the big screen now.
My goodness gracious, we do have this. Where'd that come from?
They put it up yesterday, and we have new cameras, and the light, the red light, is the camera that's on.
All right, so we are live. I will remind everybody we are live.
Is it high def?
It looks that way. It does. I will call the June 13th, 07 committee meeting on strategic planning to order, and Brown, we have a quorum.
We do.
And I appreciate everybody being here. We will move through this as time permits. On my report, Commissioner, good morning. The only thing I would report here is that through the legislative session, Chairman Shepard and Commissioner Paredes and I continued to talk to the leadership on the Hill about the task force on capital funding. If you recall, we had three components of that. We never felt like that this particular session we would be successful, that this was going to be a long-term strategy in terms of how we dealt with capital funding in this state, and we are going to continue those discussions in the interim with hopefully some success in the 09 session. We actually had a bill on the heat funds that was filed by Senator Zaffarini that would have implemented one component of that, and unfortunately that did not pass. But we're still, as I said, discussing those issues, and we'll continue to do that. The first agenda item for consideration by the committee is the annual report on progress toward closing gaps by 2015, and Jenny Binky is here from the staff. Will make a presentation preview of the 2007 progress report. Okay.
Good morning. Wait for Nancy to get this up and ready.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Start. Go ahead and start with this one.
Okay, we can use this one on the far side.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
This report will be just a short preview, because at the July board meeting there will be a longer version that will discuss each of the goals and the targets and how much progress we've made towards getting to those. As a reminder, oops.
I think everyone has a handout.
Nancy, could you advance the slide?
It's on over here, Nancy. It's over there. Oh, okay.
Okay. Just as a reminder, the Closing the Gaps participation goal is to add 630,000 more students by 2015. And
Dan, let me stop you right there as it relates to that issue, as well as all of these targets that we have. I know we revised those 2 years ago.
Yeah.
2 years ago we revised those, yes. And as I recall, the original in 2000 Closing the Gaps policy was to review those every 2 years with updated data, demographic data from Steve Murdoch. But have we done that?
We won't get his data until at least July or August.
Okay.
So
we'll be looking sometime October or possibly the January meeting before we would look at any recommendations to move any of these targets.
And we are actually in the process of going ahead and doing a complete review of the Closing the Gap strategies and all that. So the new data will be implemented along with that.
The reason I asked that, I know Chairman Shepard and I both, and the Commissioner and many of the staff members, as we went through the legislative session, were asked on numerous occasions where we were on closing the gap, were the strategies that we had in place working? If they weren't, what were we doing to look at those? And so, and I know that's an ongoing process, and I want the rest of the committee to realize that, so.
Yeah, and I can add just a few more words about that. This goal was based on the population projection using the 2000 to 2002 rate of migration, and when the new versions that we've seen using the 2000 to 2004 are not quite as high as this was, and also originally he'd suggested using half of the 1990 to 2000 migration rate, which is even lower. So there's a chance that this will be a higher number than we might get with the new population. Okay.
So the figure of 630,000 might be a high figure.
Yes,
Okay.
might be higher than,
Because the population growth is not quite as extensive as we
Yes.
thought it was. Okay, I want to be sure I understood that. Okay.
okay. We always show you this slide on the percent of students entering from public high schools. You can see that, once again, fortunately, the percentage is up slightly, which is a good sign, but the bar, which shows the number of students represented by that percentage, is not really going up very fast, and that's because the number of high school graduates has really flattened out quite a bit. In fact, in 2005, it went down a bit from 2004. Next slide. But here's one of the good things that we've noticed about high school graduates going on to higher education. If you compare the 2000 and 2006 numbers, you'll see that for African Americans and Hispanics, their percentage rates have improved more than the Asian and white rates have. So those are the two targeted groups, and it looks like they're attending at higher rates. Here is the 2006 update on enrollment, and you can see that the trend that we noticed in the last year has continued of a flattening of the growth rate. We're still in line with the target line that you see in the red there, but the yellow line that shows the actuals shows we're just right on the line, and so we need to change the slope of that yellow line if we're going to really continue to make progress and keep up with our targets. When you look at the change that happened between 2000 and 2006, you miss some of the information about what's happening on an annual basis. So I presented this slide to show you that from year to year, even though it looks like we're up for, and we are, for all students between all races and ethnicities of students between 2000 and 2006, you can see that there's quite a bit of difference in how each of the ethnicities are enrolling. And if you look at the white, which is the light blue line or bar there, you'll see that for 01 and 02 we had pretty substantial increases, but after that we've had decreases, and you can see that we've actually attracted fewer new white students into the higher education in 04 and in 05 and 06 than we had previously.
Janet, do we have any idea why that's the case?
Well, for one
We have
thing,
fewer in the cohort?
yeah, the cohort's decreasing. I think by 2010, the cohort as a whole, in terms of the age groups, will start to totally decrease from the state. So, and there are fewer graduating from high school too. So.
So we're not
it's-
producing even total high school graduates in the state is declining, even though the population is increasing.
Well, the number of high school graduates has pretty much stayed
Same?
constant.
Okay.
Yeah, but we'll see, I think, in the future that the number of white students in the high school going age is going to decrease as an absolute number, and the same will happen for black students or African American students starting shortly after 2010. So the real increase in the state is in the Hispanic
Yeah.
area.
Interesting. Okay.
There are a couple things to remember is that we actually had a decrease in white participation from 1990 to 2000. We were surprised, actually, and from 2000 to 2000 in higher ed.
In higher ed, okay.
And we were surprised at the increase in the first 3 or 4 years of the plan. We hadn't anticipated that kind of increase in the white population, and at least a partial part of that, given some analysis Susan did, and I know she'll correct me if I don't remember it quite right, was that we did find a large number of, an increase in juniors and seniors and master's students, which suggests to us we didn't have any proof that we had essentially a return to higher education of white students who perhaps had gone to the workforce because of the job market, perhaps because of technology, and then when the economy had a downturn, we were guessing they came back to finish their degrees. And so part of what I think we're seeing here
is related to that.
Returning to-
yeah, and so I think that maybe this is returning to reflect a little bit more of the demographics than we saw those first 3 years. I don't know that, but that we need to follow up, but I'm guessing that that's a part of it.
Okay.
This graph measures the delta, the actual change in year-to-year
Yeah.
enrollment in state public institutions.
Yes.
Do we measure high school enrollment in out-of-state institutions?
We're unable to do that. We do anticipate getting information from the National Student Clearinghouse, and we'll be able to match some of that, but it's not going to be a perfect matchup because not all institutions report to the Student Clearinghouse, and it's a pretty expensive thing to get. So probably what we'll do is get some points in time, and we'll have at least an estimate of kind of the general number of students who go on.
The swing from 02-03, for example, to 05-06 looks like a net of, in the neighborhood of 15,000 students or so. It's not very many students per district if they're choosing to enroll out of state.
Yeah. We're very interested in being able to use that National Student Clearinghouse data to figure out what's happening with students and where they're going.
And really, with the exception of last year, the Hispanic enrollment was declining as well until 05-06, if I read the graph.
Yes, and that's why when we look at the previous slide, the trend of flattening out for total enrollment is shown because it really was across the board that there was a drop. This slide shows you, this is once again the increase from the 2000 base for closing the gaps. The blue is, in each case, the change between 2000 and 2006 that has occurred. The red is what's required to reach our 2010 closing the gaps target. And then the lighter blue and the green show what the institutions project that they will get by 2010. We ask all the institutions as part of closing the gaps to give us their targets for each of the measures. And you can see that both for whites and African Americans, institutions project that by 2010 they'll have enrollments that make us reach our target. For Hispanics, there's quite a shortfall.
Okay, let me stop you a minute. Commissioner, we've had that slide up there for a while. I guess my question is what are we doing with the institutions to have them increase those targets for Hispanics? What are we doing there?
Well, this gets back to the way we are revising, overhauling, in fact, the way we handle the recruitment and retention strategies. And we are letting institutions know that we are going to take these planning documents more seriously. We're going to ask institutions to align their own goals with the overall goals of closing the gaps. And we're going to do that this year in the second quarter.
One thing that we're not quite sure how to do as well is I think we need to do some analysis that makes more clear to institutions that they don't increase their Hispanic enrollments, they're actually going to, in many cases, be declining institutions.
Yeah.
And we would have thought that would be understood, but it doesn't seem to be clearly understood based upon the targets that have been set.
Seems like we have an opportunity with with a little incentive funding that we have that got put in our lap, about $100 million, that we might could add some incentive to some of these issues for the institutions to reach some of these goals. Okay?
When do the institutions have to report their goals next?
We will be going out this fall when we get the new population data, because we try to provide them with the population data for their area.
So they will have the benefit of the new Murdoch
Right,
data.
right.
Okay. Thank you, James.
Okay, moving on to success, the target for awards is 210,000 more undergraduate degrees, certificates, and other identifiable student successes. This shows that in regard to the awards, we're actually doing a little better than we were related to enrollment. We're still above the target line, which is the red line here, and you can see that we've achieved about 31,000 more awards than we awarded in 2000. This is a similar slide to the one you saw on enrollment to show what the institutions project. I didn't break out the color on the light blue side to show whether it was universities or community colleges, mostly because the bachelors are almost entirely universities and the associates are almost entirely from the community college sector. But you can see in both cases, well, particularly with associates, we're going to fall short of the target for 2010.
I thought our community college associate certificates were increasing.
They have been, but
Okay.
this is what's projected, and actually the projection is lower than I think seems reasonable for them. We do know that a lot of them have gone out and tried to award associate degrees to people who have completed their curriculum when they transferred, and maybe that they're getting now a little bit, they've saturated that and have awarded all those, so that may explain partially why they're not anticipating that grows quite as rapidly, but it is something we still want them to achieve.
Maybe they haven't had enough. They can essentially increase their targets anytime, but without being prompted. Institutions typically don't.
Exactly.
And I mean, your memory is exactly right. They've actually had a tremendous increase in the number of associate's degrees awarded, and when we met with the presidents and chancellors from the community colleges, I guess last week, they seemed to believe they were going to continue increasing those associate degrees. So I think they will actually willingly increase those targets because they've made a great deal of progress.
I think it would be helpful to, and I assume you'll do this maybe at the board, maybe you don't, but this is a suggestion, is that we do break out the community colleges from the four-year institution. I think it would be helpful to see that data.
Okay.
Because I think we need to know where is the growth actually occurring. I don't, to put them together doesn't seem to me to be meaningful.
Okay.
Because they basically have different missions.
Also, one other thing to bear in mind is Jan's talking about the 2010 targets here.
Right.
Right, I understand.
We actually did exceed the 2005 target.
But we're past that. We got to look
Right.
ahead. I mean,
Right.
what's going to happen? What happened in '05 is done and past.
That's right.
We got something to do about 2010, so.
Yeah. We will also be holding in the fall accountability meetings with all the institutions, and we plan at that time to talk with them extensively about the purpose of their targets and how we're using them and why we want them to carefully reconsider what they're projecting.
Commissioner, I think it's important when we have those meetings like that they understand this $100 million incentive funding is going to be tied back to closing the gaps, and then what are we going to do, and what are you doing to do that? So, obviously, we're in the very infancy stages of that, but as they begin to look at this in the fall, even though that plan for incentive funding is not in place, they need to be aware that if they're going to participate in that pie, they're going to have to participate heavily in what we're doing in closing the gaps, particularly in the Hispanic area.
Can I ask a question real quick? If you go back a couple of slides and it says that the goal is to award 210,000 more certificates by 2015, and then you look at the next slide, and I don't see where this graph ever gets there. I mean, it gets up to about 60-something thousand.
That's a total, the 210,000 is a total awards.
That's not over and above.
Yeah, and this is just the increase that we're talking about here.
So the 210 represents what increase over what we would have expected without closing the gap?
No, it's the target.
The 210 is the
he was
total,
asking-
but her graph just showed that the increase from that's where we were in 2000. I don't,
Increase
that's
was-
what I think you had put up.
But what was the, what's the 210? That's a good question. What is the 210 on the slide? The target in the closing the gaps versus what we're viewing here in actuality? How do you tie those together?
The,
210 was the total, the graph shows the increase that we've had so far and where we're going.
and
But should that graph, should this graph over here on the left-hand side be up to 210?
And we may do that, and that may be less confusing.
yeah,
Not show the
it's
increase.
just the increase. I've tried to, we've heard that when we do some that are increase and some that are total, it's confusing. So I've tried
I'm still trying to
to just,
understand the 210 and what
Yeah.
Paul asked. Is it?
and it is the total. We had in the 2000 in bachelor's, associates, and certificates, 116,000.
I see.
And right now, the actual is 147. The goal,
We need to explain that in our graph a little better.
yeah,
What that
and what
210
I can do is put at the end of that what the difference would be as the, so it'll
Look
be
at
obvious.
630,000, that means additional students, whereas the 210 is not additional degrees. It's to get up to that
Right,
rate.
To get a
right.
And that's, I think, the difference. We need to
So
explain
the
that.
comparable number would be 210 less 116?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And the target, the total target, not just the increase, is 171 for 2010.
Okay.
So we'll do that on the slide for the
I think
next
that will help
meeting.
explain that a little better.
Catch, Paul.
Oh, that gets you where you need to go. Okay.
Getting there.
All right.
Okay. Here's one on doctoral degrees. This is one where we've been lagging behind for a long time. We were very concerned about meeting the target. And then suddenly in the last 2 years, there's been a large increase in the number of doctoral degrees awarded. So you see that since 2000, we've awarded 438 more doctoral degrees, and we need to increase that by 165 more to reach the 2010 target. You can also see in the light blue that the institutions are expecting to award massively more degrees than that amount. So we'll be interested in seeing if they continue to increase at the same rate that they have in the last couple of years. But we have instituted a lot of new doctoral programs, and that might explain why the institutions feel like they're going to exceed the target so greatly.
Are the institutions' targets based on existing degree programs, or do they set targets based on degree programs they expect to submit or request over the next 5 years?
With something like a doctoral program where it takes quite a while for it to really get up to speed, and then it takes a long time for the students to actually get through the program, I think probably for a goal that would be, say, 5 years out, they probably wouldn't be including those. But when they're talking about 10 years out, I imagine they are including what they anticipate will be the new programs that they would get awarded.
But we don't necessarily have a specific guideline.
No, we do not.
Really, each institution probably figures it out.
In their own manner, yeah. And I suppose we could try to come up with something that would give them some guidelines about how we want them to do it, but we haven't.
And just not to be dense here, but this graph represents the change.
This is the increase, and since 2000, we've had 438 more. But that's, it's a year-to-year thing, so it could go down again next year. It's not cumulative.
Thank you.
And then on to research. Our goal is to achieve 6.5% of the obligations to higher ed that are awarded by the federal government. And this is where we stand now relative to the other big states. If you look at the whole period of time there from 98 to 2004, because the data for this always lags at least a couple of years behind, it looks like we've made a lot more progress than some of the other states. When you look from year to year, there's quite a bit of variation. And last year we were at 6.1%, so we're actually down this year. But overall, Texas is doing better than it has. And the next slide will show that, Nancy, next slide, okay. Show that we're pretty much on target to meet what we want to achieve by 2015. But there you can see that we've been higher in the past and now we're back down a little bit relative to our share. And then this is a little different view of research expenditures. This comes from the research expenditures report that our research staff does, and it includes not just the federal research expenditures, but it also has institutional and private and state institutional expenditures in there. And you can see we grew again by 6%, not quite up to the standard of 9%, which we did last year, but 2004 was a year of minimal growth, so that may explain why 2005 was higher. And one thing to note about this is that the public health-related institutions are the source of a good deal of the growth in research expenditures in the state. Okay, so to summarize, one thing we didn't talk about was technology. We'll talk about that at the July meeting, but it's the area where we seem to have made the least progress, and we really don't know what to do about that. The institutions also do not project that they're going to award nearly as many technology certificates, associates and bachelors, as we would like for them to. But for the majority of the rest of the goals, we have increased, but the rate of increase is slowing compared to what it was in the first few years of the Closing the Gaps project. And then one more slide just to tell you that we're in the process of preparing and publishing a new version of this Closing the Gaps document. That was the one that was produced in 2000. We had hoped that the person who originally wrote it would be able to help us with the new document, but she, good for her, has gotten another job, so we're still looking for somebody to help us produce this document. And we know that we need to continue to concentrate on the Hispanic participation and success if we're going to meet the Closing the Gaps goals. And if there are any topics that we touched on today that you would like more information about when we do the July presentation, please let us know and we'll try to include those.
Okay, very good. And what we might do, Susan, is email the entire committee. There's a number of not here to alert them that after they review the material, we need to provide them a handout, and if they have some additional information they think the whole board needs, then let's get their input on that. Commissioner?
Neil, I wanted to mention to the committee that in addition to obviously focusing on Hispanic issues, we are going to take a close look at the participation of African American males in higher education. Everybody knows that the numbers have been steadily going downward, and we've reached the crisis point in terms of the participation of that part of our population. I think we have a meeting with Senator West, who has particularly expressed concern about this issue, and we're going to meet with him to talk about what kinds of initiatives we can launch in the state to address this issue.
Good. Any other questions of Ms. Minke? Janet, thank you. Okay, our next item is item 2C, discussion of strategic planning bills passed in the 80th legislative session. Susan Brown present an overview of the multiple bills passed associated with higher ed planning. Susan?
And there's a little handout in your packet, kind of a quick spreadsheet. One caveat to all this is SB 1234 has not been signed by the governor yet, and we have, there's been some talk that it will not be signed, so that's just kind of an informational item. There have been a couple of committees that are being formed. One is the Select Committee on Higher and Public Education Finance. That's on the House side. The chart will show you who the members are and what their tasks are to be, what they're going to be looking at, and it's the initiatives to further student achievement. It's pretty broad, looking at a lot of formula and non-formula funded programs, strategy for leveraging more funds, review and development of state obligations. That's the Texas Tomorrow plan. And there was a Texas Tomorrow 2 funding plan that passed, and I believe has already been signed by the governor, so that's on the way. The other one is this House Concurrent Resolution 159 by Morrison. The Senate resolution was the same, and so we just put both numbers there. The House one is the one that was finally passed and signed, and it's to create a select commission on higher education and competitiveness. They are going to be developing what they call the Texas Compact, I believe is the term that they're going to be putting out, and they have a due date, which didn't get printed on here, of November 1 of 08. So I'm sure we will be providing them with quite a bit of information. Even if the SB 1234 is not signed by the governor, we will probably be looking into many of these same things in conjunction with the review of the Closing the Gaps. So if there's any particular area of this that you are interested in and would like to make sure that we look at in detail, please let us know. And this is just kind of an overview of what we're going to be doing and some of the bills that we'll be supporting, committees that we'll be supporting on the strategic planning side of it.
As most of you know, we have a process of every year adopting and updating our strategic plan that's mandated by previous legislation.
Each biennium.
It's each biennium, okay. And we did that here recently, and so this will tie back into, and even if some of these bills don't get signed for whatever reason, I think Raymond and Chairman Shepard and I have talked about this, is that there are going to be some areas that we're going to want to pursue. I think they identify some key areas that we need to be looking at as a state from a strategic standpoint that we're not currently looking at through our own strategic plan as we currently drafted. So particularly in Senator Zapparini's bill. So any questions or comments? That's there primarily for your information. Okay. Next item is item 2D. This agenda item is consideration of methodology for allocating funds, trustee for enrollment growth, new campuses at two-year institutions. Gary Johnstone is here. Will present the methodology. Gary?
The rider in the Appropriation Act states that the coordinating board will develop a formula for allocating dramatic growth funds, and that's what this item on your agenda is consideration of the methodology that we will use. The methodology that we're proposing is exactly the same methodology we have used for dramatic growth in previous bienniums. The differences in this biennium primarily have to do with the percentage of growth that will be considered for funding. In this past biennium, 06-07, the it required a 10% growth in the first year and a 20% growth for the second year of the biennium. This appropriation bill, those thresholds were lowered to 5% for the first year and 8% for the second year of the biennium.
Gary, this is all for two-year institutions.
This is for the community colleges,
Right.
the technical colleges,
Right.
and the Lamar State colleges. And the funding is stated in the agenda item, is a little over 1.7 million for each year. And this past biennium, it was a little over 2.2 million.
Basically, we're a pass-through of these funds to these
Yes.
institutions based on the formula set up in the statute, so
Exactly.
What is
we don't have a great deal of discretion about what happens here.
dollar figure per contact hour?
We take the rate of the contact hour that is earned by the hour, and the rate is established by the board in their formula recommendations. So we take the hours that are above the threshold, which will be 5%, and calculate what the school earned with those hours.
But we set the rate per hour.
Back in the funding formula.
When we set the funding formula, we set the value of the contact hour.
And that rate is based on cost. There's a cost survey, and it's based on cost.
We
And-
will, we will allocate the amount over the 5%. And then since we have an appropriation limitation, if there is more earned by the community colleges, state colleges, and TSTCs as a whole, then we'll have to prorate that each year.
Last year, that was not an issue. We only had one institution that went over the threshold, and so out of the 2 million that was appropriated, I
Gave
think we,
10% out.
yeah,
That balance carry forward,
We did not.
no.
but these balances.
Well,
This will-
it carries
this will
forward
balance.
between within a biennium. August
Not beyond
31,
the biennium.
not beyond the biennium.
Any other questions?
The other recommendation is, there's not really anything for us to calculate as a formula, but there was also new campus appropriations that are listed at the bottom of the page for fiscal year 2008 and 2009 for the campuses listed, and those campuses will report to us the hours, the contact hours that they taught at those campuses in particular in those fiscal years, and then we will forward this appropriation on to them based on them teaching those contact hours.
Gary, on the numbers on item 2D, you've got fiscal year 06 and fiscal year 07.
So that should be 08 and 09.
Okay, all right. All right. And what's the pleasure of the committee, recommendation of the board as it relates to the allocation methodology and authorizing the commissioner to disperse the funds according to that methodology?
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. All opposed, same sign, motion carries. Okay. The next item is item 2E. It's a similar issue. It deals with trust deed funds for professional nursing shortage reduction program. Susan Brown.
Yes, there were some changes to the rider for the nursing shortage reduction program this year. There's a limitation that has been placed on the funds that can be received by the community colleges of 40% for each year of the biennium. It is based, the basis remain the same as far as it's based on the increase in nursing graduates. And so that can be allocated across the institutions, but the community colleges can only receive up to 40% unless we are unable to allocate the rest of it to the universities. Unless their increase was so small that they couldn't use all the money, then we can go back and give the rest of it for each year to the community colleges. And again, this is a it's fairly well set. One of the other things, and we haven't figured out how to do this yet, is it allows us to do a partial payment in September.
Same as last time.
Unfortunately, they don't report any of their data to us until November. So we're trying to figure out a way that we could possibly do a partial payment without creating a huge reporting burden at the same time. So we are still in discussion with the institutions on how we might be able to do that piece of it. But so far, we haven't figured out how to do it without having to do 2 rounds of data collection and all of that for the institutions. And without giving them a partial payment that is actually more than they're going to receive and then having to ask for money back, which gets into a whole nother set of problems.
Susan, what is the advantage of doing a partial payment or an early payment?
Because we don't get their information until, well, we get it in October, it's usually not certified till December. They don't actually get their money until January. This would allow them to have use of that money in the fall.
Would that improve recruiting of faculty for the fall?
There's been mixed comments on that one. The money increased dramatically also this time.
Yeah, they were
Last time it was $6 million, this time it's $14.7 million. And so that is a huge increase in the amount of money. So, and I think it would help, it might help some if they knew that they were getting it, because generally they will know that they've got an increase coming. The problem is you take that amount of money and you spread it out among all the institutions, so they may know what increase they have, they just don't know what everybody else is going to have. So they don't know exactly how much money they're going to get, so it would help planning if we could do a preliminary one. We just don't want to do a double reporting.
Couldn't they base an estimate off of the growth and outcomes from last biennium and then back that down to 50% of their
They
projection?
change, because it's an annual change, year-to-year change, some of them would go way up and then way down, which was kind of a surprise to us, so it's a...
We haven't talked about this.
There's not a good trend
for this, but if they reported early, why would they have to report again?
If they reported and we're
that
still...
information early and we're...
Because we have to give everybody reported early, because it's an allocation across all the institutions.
Well, no, I know, but if we had the people that would be affected by the nursing dollars report their nursing information early, why would we need to get the same information from them a second time?
If we could get everybody to agree to report all their
That's,
nursing early.
I'm just saying that's something.
because you got to
that we have see
prorate
what
this
the
among
consensus
all the
is.
institutions, not just one institution.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
the
assuming
problem.
everybody would do the same thing. I'm not talking.
If they want their money out of it, maybe they'd do that.
Those that would,
Seemed like it would be worth the effort.
well, for those that are increasing, it would be worth the effort.
But there's going to be, there's an increase, significant increase in the biennium over last biennium, so
There is a huge,
I would say, let's approve this with the understanding the staff's going to work with the institutions to resolve this issue in terms of trying to get the money to them as quickly as we can with as little reporting requirements as possible. They'll just work out the details.
We will do that.
I have a motion to that effect.
So moved. Second.
A motion is second to approve the methodology. The process, though, the staff will work out with the institution in terms of how we distribute and the reporting requirements. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, motion carried. The next item is 2F. There are 3 projects for consideration and recommendation for board approval from this committee. All 3 projects are TRBs, so the recommendation is approval for evaluation. And because all 3 projects are from institutions within the Texas A&M system, Virgil Gay will be making a presentation. Virgil? The first project is a request to construct an emerging technologies and economic development interdisciplinary life sciences building. That's a mouthful. Texas A&M University. This project will be located in College Station, Texas. Virgil?
Thank you very much. I've brought with me Dan Kennedy, Director of Planning for our new planning division, to help me out in case I get stuck on any questions here. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started. The Emerging Technologies and Economic Development interdisciplinary building is proposed for construction actually on a northern portion of Texas A&M University campus in College Station. The location is just east of Basell Street and south of University Drive, as shown on the slide. The site is also across from Zachary and Weisenbaker buildings. The theme of the Emerging Technologies and Economic Development Interdisciplinary Building is a mouthful. Is the support of emerging technologies and delivery of these technologies to the marketplace. As a central component to the discovery and implementation of these kinds of technologies, the Texas A&M College of Engineering will work with several other colleges in collaborative efforts to enhance universities' contributions to technology and economies of the state and the nation. Now, on the requested facility slides we show here that the building will contain a biomedical engineering department, which will include a laboratory and office support spaces that will foster work in the area of optics, imaging, cardiovascular, biomechanics, and device development and biomaterials research. Also in the building will be industrial and system engineering department, which will include laboratory and office support spaces for research and design and analysis of complex systems, manufacturing, automation, quality management, system simulation, and transportation systems. Additionally, as an interdisciplinary portion of this building, we will have shared research space that will include computational science plus visualization program for faculty from the computer science and engineering, which is in engineering, the industrial and systems engineering, the architectural visualization group, and the math departments. So it'll be truly interdisciplinary work in that portion of it. Also, there'll be space for the Institute for Coastal and Deepwater Offshore Systems. Additionally, there'll be space for currently unspecified researchers in other related disciplines. Now, the estimated total building area is 231,073 gross square feet. The total budget for the project is $100 million. The breakdown of this budget is as shown in our construction application. Funding for the project is $75 million in tuition revenue bond authorization and $25 million in permanent university fund bonds. At this time, we'll entertain any questions.
Virgil, thank you. This meets all 5 standards that according to board standards. Does anyone have any questions or comments regarding this particular project? Can you go back to the location slide?
Go to slide 2. That one there.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, it does not affect your parking space on the
Everybody else in the world is trying to figure that one out. I've heard a little bit about that issue, as you might expect, having chaired that committee. Any other comments on this project?
I'd be interested to see how liberal arts fits into this overall scheme. According to your cover sheet, which says that this will intended to enhance research initiatives across disciplines that already exist, including agriculture and life science, liberal arts, science and veterinary medicine. I'm curious about how the liberal arts are going to fit into the overall interdisciplinary scheme. Do you have any idea about that at all?
We have some folks here who can speak to that.
Dina Wallace.
Dina.
Okay.
One of the things I know within the agricultural department, they have what they call leadership and communications. And although it's in the College of Agriculture, it is collaborative across the lines of the university. And so there are many, I know of several programs, I don't have them on the tip of my tongue, that like that, there are actually collaborative programs throughout the university.
Why don't you clarify that for us between now and the board meeting?
I do notice that, at least if this part of the description was accurate, that biomedical engineering and industrial and systems engineering or part of this, and I know that sometimes, I don't know how it's set up at A&M, psychology departments will get involved in some of those efforts. That would be the one liberal arts discipline I can
Yeah,
think of.
that is correct.
You got $20 million. Any other questions or comments? This again is before the committee to be recommended to the board for final approval.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion second. Any other comments or discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Gay. The next item on our agenda is to construct a science building on the campus at Galveston, Texas, at Texas A&M University. Mr. Gay.
The new science building at Texas A&M University at Galveston is to be constructed in the southeastern portion of the university's Mitchell campus on Pelican Island, just south of the library building and north of the physical plant facilities and the boat basin as shown on this slide. The new state-of-the-art facility will play a critical role in the advancement of marine sciences through interdisciplinary collaboration with local, state, and federal agencies, as well as faculty at other Texas institutions. The requested facility slide identifies the currently proposed building spaces, and these include administrative and faculty offices, classrooms, and lecture halls, marine biology and marine sciences, research labs, marine holding facilities, and other support spaces. The total anticipated gross square foot for the project is, gross square feet for the project is 110,000. The total budget for the project is $50 million. The breakdown of the total budget is shown in our construction application, and the funding for the project is $9,950,000 in permanent university fund bonds and $40,050,000 in tuition revenue bond authorization. Are there any questions?
This particular item meets 4 of the 5 coordinating board standards. The critical deferred maintenance is not met, and this approval is subject to the staff's recommendation for approval of evaluation is subject to the condition that the university develop and report to the board a specific plan of action for addressing the space surplus added by this project, and progress be demonstrated prior to approval of any future project applications. And we're going to be sure y'all understand that condition.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Okay.
The staff recommendation that reports the condition as a space surplus, rather than the actual criteria which you pointed out was the critical deferred maintenance. But this does not actually, even though it's close, this does not actually create a surplus. There's still a small deficit.
There's a small deficit, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so,
Yeah. So I think, in other words, the recommendation and conditions are just incorrectly worded.
all right, okay, I hear you. Well, let me clean that up. Okay. Other comments or questions? Chair will entertain a motion. Motion and second to recommend approval to the board of the evaluation of conditions of constructing a science building on campus at Galveston. Any comments or discussion? All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The next item is, and the third project for Texas A&M University System, is a health science center, construct a medical education research building on the campus in Bryan, Texas, which is this is actually out by the airport, is it not? And that's relocate to med school on College Station, Bryan. Mr. Gay.
The medical education and research building is one of the first 2 teaching facilities to be built on the new campus for the Texas A&M University System Health Science Center. On the site slide here, we have the new campus that consists of 200 acres of land gifted to the Texas A&M University System, and is located on the north side of State Highway 47, just west of Raymond Stoltzer and the airport, as you so stated. A master plan for the new campus is currently underway, which will establish the location of the medical education and research building, along with other initial phase and future facilities. On our facility slide, the medical education and research building will include research labs, an imaging lab, a BSL-3 laboratory suite, along with associated equipment rooms, office and support spaces. The estimated total building area is approximately 148,750 gross square feet. The total budget for this portion of the project is $60 million. The breakdown of this total budget is shown in the construction application. The funding for the project is $45 million in tuition revenue bond authorization and $15 million in permanent university fund bonds. Are there any questions?
All right, Mr. Gay, the land, the 200, go back to the map if we could, 200 plus acres, was it donated? Was it not donated?
Yes, it was.
That's by the city of Bryan.
Yes.
And this is actually, as I mentioned, the med school that's currently at Scott and White and Temple will remain there. This is actually based on previous authorization, increasing the size of the Texas A&M Health Science Center. This will be a second location for the med school, and those numbers will be different students. So there'll still be the campus at Scott and White Temple, and this will be a new campus on the A&M College Station Bryan campus. Are there any questions about this meets, by the way, the 5 standards of the courting board? Any comments or questions? Chair will entertain a motion. So moved. Motion, do I have a second? Second. Any discussions or comments? All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. That was a motion to recommend approval to the board for evaluation. All right. The next 8 items on the agenda for committee action. These are for committee action. Thank you, gentlemen. The first project is to reapprove and renovate Ratliff Engineering and Sciences Complex for the University of Texas at Tyler. This project is located on that campus. Chip Clark, I believe, is here to provide us an overview. Chip.
Morning.
Morning. How are you?
I think. Can we go to the third slide? That one there. That's we're here just to reapprove the previous approved project for the Ratliff Engineering Sciences Complex, which was approved at $48 million. We've since received a gift of $1.3 million. We're asking for reapproval for the 49.3.
And so you've got some additional funding. What are you proposing to do with that additional funding?
It will go towards the art expansion and the art renovation and expansion project, which is this is a 5-part project of expansion and remodeling on the campus.
Okay. This meets 4 of the 5 standards. It does not meet the standard on space need, and the recommendation of the staff is for approval of evaluation, condition that the institution implements its plan to address the current space surplus and progress is demonstrated prior to approval of any future project application. You understand that? Okay. Any questions on this? Yes, Mr. Johnson.
Before this recent request for the extension, did this project create a surplus previously?
This project is really to address, with the expansion, the overall 5-part projects. In remodeling, we'll be able to create, I think we'll solve all the deficit problems, and that's part of our plan, is to design more efficient classrooms and offices. And a plan was submitted.
We have a plan on file, if you'd like to see it.
Oh, there is a plan on file.
There is a
Yeah,
plan on file, right.
Great. Okay, that's the question I was getting at.
Yes, we do have a plan on file.
Any other questions or comments? Again, this is an item for this committee's approval, consideration and approval. Chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion second for the committee to approve or reapprove the renovation of Ratliff Engineering and Sciences Complex. I assume that's named after Senator Bill Ratliff.
Yes, it is.
All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Same sign, motion carries. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
The second item is a project TRB from Texas A&M International University to construct Student Success Center. Virgil Gay is sitting back with us, and Mr. Kennedy.
Ray Keck, president, is also here for the discussion.
Mr. Ray Keck. Dr. Ray Keck, nice to have you with us today. How are things down your way? Good. I would imagine that's unusual. Mr. Gay.
The Student Success Center at Texas A&M International University, Laredo, Texas, will be located at the southern terminus of the main north-south axis of the campus. The facility will provide for the integration of students, faculty, academic, support, technology, and student services in a convenient one-stop shop setting that encourages interaction between the students and university personnel. The center will contain administrative offices, spaces for admissions, bursar and financial aid, registrar and recruitment offices, graduate and international program offices, spaces for tutorials, testing, and special programs, the academic advising center, classrooms, and associated support spaces. The total building area is estimated to be at 96,000 gross square feet. The total project budget estimate is $25 million, broken down as shown on our construction application. And the project funding is totally tuition revenue bonds. Are there any questions?
One comment before I mention the standard. Standard 1 was mismarked. That should have been does not meet, according to board rule, because there is a space surplus. The other four items other four standards are met. And the recommendation of staff is to approve this for evaluation with conditions that the university develop and report to the board a specific plan of action for addressing the space surplus added by this project, and progress be demonstrated prior to approval of any future applications. We've talked to the staff about that. Okay, good. So we'll need to, is that plan in place or in the progress?
It is in place.
In place, okay, very good.
They're in place before we bring them to you.
Okay. And that plan's acceptable? Okay.
Yes.
Any questions or comments? Yes, Mr. Jones.
Question, under the closing the gaps comment, it says the project affects the goal of success by providing first-time freshmen comprehensive support program, et cetera. Is this facility only to serve first-time freshmen, or will it be a service center for all students?
I anticipate it will be all students.
Yes, all students.
All students.
It will have the dual function of reaching out to the schools. This will be the place that all students that are going to interested in entering the university will come. It'll be the outreach arm for high school students and the inreach for students entering the university to try to make them successful, hang on to them.
So all of the services will be available.
Yes, yes. It's the one registrar will be there, the bursar,
It's a great. I think every university should have a facility like this. I know from personal experience that children who are way beyond their freshman year can.
Commissioner, would you like to comment?
Yes, well, I know that President Keck has been excited about this building for some time, and we look forward to seeing the impact that this facility will have on graduation rates and success of students. I can't help but mention that this past year, one of our Star Award winners was the Student Success Program at Stephen F. Austin. And I urge you to take a look at what Stephen F. Austin is doing, because they've had some rather extraordinary success in exactly the same areas that you want this facility to focus on. And we have the name of the person. I'll send you an email, Ray, and give you the name of the person at Stephen F. Austin who's been the director of the program, has had extraordinary success. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good. Any other comments or questions? What's the pleasure, committee?
Move approval.
Second. A motion is second to move approval for evaluation with conditions that the university develop report to the board a specific plan of action for addressing space surplus. Any other comments or questions? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Good luck to you. Nice to have you here, Mr. Keck. The third item for the committee consideration is construct a nursing, health, science, and kinesiology facility at Texas A&M Corpus Christi. Mr. Gay.
The nursing, health sciences, and kinesiology facility at Texas A&M University Corpus Christi will be located in the southern portion of the campus, just to the southeast of the University Center building, and adjacent to the new wellness center currently under construction. Now, this facility will provide a much-needed teaching and laboratory space for the growing nursing and health sciences and kinesiology programs, as well as wellness and athletic training facilities for ever-expanding student enrollment. The spaces to be contained in the nursing, health science, and kinesiology building are, there'll be joint instructional space consisting of classrooms and computer labs. Nursing and health sciences will have labs and a therapy room, conference rooms, and departmental offices. Kinesiology will consist of labs and training rooms, departmental offices, and the academic support center. As joint use activities, there'll be indoor track and cardio, vascular alcoves, gymnasium, multi-purpose room, men lockers room, women's locker room. The total estimated building area is 140,285 square feet, and the total project budget is estimated $45 million, as it's shown in our construction application. Project funding is tuition revenue bonds. Are there any questions on this one?
This project meets all 5 standards of the coordinating board. Comments or questions? Chair, entertain a motion.
Move approval. Second.
Have a motion second. Any other comments or questions? All in favor of the motion to approve this project, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign. Motion carries. Next item is, thank you, gentlemen, is the committee action from Texas Tech University Health Science Center to reapprove construct International Pain Center.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Before we get started, I would like to recognize a departing member of the coordinating board staff.
Okay.
Again, thanks Susan for training people to go, at least this one staying in state. But we do have a coveted facility plan construction good job award for Lillian as she heads off.
Thank you, Mr. Allegati.
Thank you, sir. Go to the next slide. It says reapprove. This is actually a reapproval of the project.
Okay, well, yeah, I thought we'd seen this a time or two.
Yes, sir. And I have promised Susan that if this project comes back before the board again, it won't be a flunky vice chancellor here. It'll be someone with an important title like president or chancellor explaining it for the 5th time. Basically, it's a 12,700 square foot clinic building for our International Pain Center, which has some international renown, doing a lot of good work in treating of chronic pain. It was redesigned when the prior director departed and a new director showed up. It was redesigned to include an ambulatory surgery center. Next slide, please. It was already under construction when we sort of stopped and went into redesign on the project, but we've incorporated the ambulatory surgery center in there, have worked our way through to get the State Department of Health Services approval on it, have rebid it out, and so these numbers are based on our construction manager's bids. Next slide. You can see the project budget there. I would point out that construction cost of $4,988,000 based on the short suspense when we got the additional funding and turning it in that number is about $270,000 of fixed equipment. So I think in your breakout it shows $0 for fixed equipment. It's in that construction dollar. Next slide. It's funded $3.5 million in gifts and donations, another $3.5 million in HEAF. $750,000 of the HEAF is replacing a gift which was promised some time ago and has not yet been received. We're not hopeful, so we funded that with HEAF. The rest of the HEAF funds the increase due to the ambulatory surgery center. Next. Here's our schedule. We restarted construction within our current approval authority last December with the new underfloor utilities to keep the project moving forward. And to keep the donor happy, since the donor does live in Lubbock and drives by there occasionally to check on my progress. We expect to be done in about a year. When we submitted the building the first time, it was number 10 on our MP1, and the next year in 05 is the first year we started having 0 priorities for previously approved projects, and now we don't list them, but it was on our MP1 a couple of times. You've seen it before. Yeah, I think it meets all the criteria. I would point out the actual cost per square foot calculated on that $4.9 million number is $273 a square foot. When you take out the fixed equipment, it drops down to $200 and some dollars per 200. I'm sorry, it was $393 calculated at 4.9. It's actually $372 per square foot which is certainly not average, but within the range for your ambulatory surgery center. And I would ask the committee's approval on that project.
This does meet all 5 standards of the coordinating board. Any comments or questions? Chair will entertain a motion.
Second.
And a motion second for the committee to approve this reapproval of Construct International Pain Center in Texas Tech University Health Science Center. Any other comments or discussion? All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Ellicott.
Thank you again, sir.
Next item is a request from Texas State University San Marcos to reapprove Student Recreation Center Phase 2, located in San Marcos. Bill Nance, I believe, is here today to discuss this with us. Bill?
Good morning. Morning, Mr. Chairman. First, let me introduce some colleagues that are with me here today. Mr. Peter Graves is Associate Vice Chancellor for Contracts for the Texas State University System. He handles construction matters for the system. Dr. Joanne Smith is the Vice President for Student Affairs at Texas State, and the Student Recreation Program reports to Dr. Smith.
Okay.
And also, Mr. George Krasinski is one of our senior project managers on campus, and he's been living with this project night and day, I think, since we got the bids back in the fall that put us in this position. Just a quick overview, since it's a reapproval, and some of you saw it a year ago. We were here exactly 1 year ago. This is in addition to our Student Recreation Center. The left-hand side, the lower level building, is the existing Student Rec Center. The right-hand side there from the archway on is the rendering of the new Student Rec Center. Might remember a year ago we had a discussion about Spanish colonial architecture and restoring that on campus, and Mr. Ellicott was involved in that, about the difference between Spanish Renaissance and Spanish colonial. And one of the things we tried to do is stick with that. That was, you might remember, a cornerstone of our campus master plan, to return to that. And of course, when a project comes in over the original budget and you start looking at things to cut, certainly that was one of the first things put forward. But Dr. Trouth and the rest of the campus community believe strongly in holding to that new style of architecture, and if we gave up on this one, you know, what would happen on the next one. So we have left that element in there as much as we can. Again, just a quick overview. The slide that's up there, the left-hand side, the vertical element is the new building with cardio rooms, weight rooms, training rooms, and it has 2 pools. And the right-hand side is the existing building. Go ahead to the next slide. The second floor on the addition has 4 basketball courts convertible to indoor soccer fields, and the second-story balcony is open to the 2 pools below. When we were here a year ago, the project was approved at $25.2 million. Based on a third-party estimate of the preliminary plans that we had at the time. Marmon Mock is the architect. They proceeded to draw final plans and specifications. We hired a CM at risk, and in about October, CM came in with the actual pricing, and it was 36.9 million. Way over the 25.2, and so we set about working with the AE and the CM to try to get that down, and after 6 or 8 months of work, we have it down to the $31.1 million total project cost that our regents approved last month. And this project will be funded by a student recreation fee. In 2004, the students voted for a $47 per semester increase to finance this. As we got to looking at what else could we cut out, eventually you get to the point, the students obviously wanted the pools, the additional playing courts, you get to the point if you cut anything else out, you have, the building is not what the students voted for a fee increase on. So this is affordable within that student fee. It's about $41 of the $47 student fee increase to fund this. Now, since then, we've also added $1.5 million in HEAF to the project. Our PE programs that involve water sports have been taught previously in a facility, our Aqua Sports Complex. It's a 1950s era building, much in need of renovation. And we had earmarked $1.5 million in our HEAF plan to renovate the Aqua Sports building. And we got to looking at this facility, and that project, it looks like it's going to be a lot more than $1.5 million. So we said, well, if we're going to have 2 new pools in this student rec center, let's move the PE classes over there. And so working with the academic department and the provost office and student recreation department, they have agreed to move their classes into this facility when it's open. And so we're taking the $1.5 million that had been earmarked for that Aqua Sports building, putting it into this building since it will have an E&G component now. And that's where we are.
Okay. The going from $36.9 million to $31.7 million is a pretty significant amount, certainly in excess of 10%. Where did the $5 million go?
Well,
just generally. I don't need the detail.
Well, we have about a 6 or 7 page VE items.
I don't need all that detail.
The biggest number in there is over $1 million in stainless steel handrails.
Okay.
We eliminated the stainless steel handrails, went to a different type handrail. Won't exactly match the existing building, but it's certainly serviceable. Just things like that.
Okay. All right, that's fine. Any other questions or comments? What's the pleasure of the committee?
Move approval.
Second. Have a motion and a second to approve, reapprove Student Rec Center Phase 2 at Texas State University San Marcos. Any other comments or questions? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good luck this time around.
I think we got it this time.
Okay.
Firm number.
The next 2 projects are from Midwestern State University. The coordinating board staff has made a site visit to Midwestern this week to look at these 2 projects. The first project is a TRB, renovate Fowler Hall located on the campus, and I believe Juan Sandoval.
Yes, sir.
Is here, and you want to introduce the other gentleman?
This is Mr. Alan Goldab, Associate Vice President for Facility Services.
Say how you get name again?
Mr. Alan Goldab.
Okay.
Associate Vice President for Facility Services.
Very good. Great.
First of all, I want to show you a picture of what the Fowler building looks like. That's the front of it. And then next slide, that's the side view of the Fowler building. That's important as we consider that a perfect site for renovation. Next slide. The original construction of the building was in 1949. It was renovated in 1981. We estimate that it has significant deferred maintenance issues. However, we cited that as number 3 in our priority capital expenditure plan. Next slide. It originally consisted of an $8 million project, and actually in preliminary design, it was almost $14 million, and that really significantly increased the surplus space issue, and we said, no, we got to revisit the footprint, and so we pared it down, we reduced even the $8 million to $7.2 million by gathering the support of 3 donors, foundations contributing $4.5 million, and the 2.7 is coming directly through TRB support. In terms of renovation and versus new construction, Alan will speak to you.
Architecturally, the university has a very unique architectural style. It has been that way since first built. The cast stone and brick is a standard that's been used by the university since the beginning. That was one reason that we were shooting to save this particular building, at least the facade. We're also doing quite a bit to incorporate LEED parent principles, even though we're not going to attempt to be LEED certified on this project. And using the footprint of the existing building helped us limit our space surplus and control the size of the project, as well as control the size of the budget, which was a big point for us. So that's where we are on the architectural.
What we threw in here is really our wanting to address the space surplus by indicating to you one of the ways to address that is by looking at potential growth if we're successful at getting your support in coming up with this building. I think the building itself will institute or cultivate more interest, more students. We hired new faculty, a new chair, Dr. Idir Asus, and he's he's a bit of a pusher, and he's been wanting another facility for engineering, and his projection, and this is also addressed by the provost, he's projecting a growth of 140 to spring 2010, 370. So maybe small number for some, it's a very big number for us. And with that, that's our proposal to you.
Okay, thank you. This meets 4 of the 5 standards. Of course, the space need is not met. There is not a recommendation from the staff. It's pending additional information from site visit. Ms. Brown, you want to tell us about that?
Right, and the site visit went very well, and we appreciate being given the tour. Patrick went on the site visit, and we are recommending approval of the evaluation because it is TRB money.
And would that be subject to the condition of meeting having a plan in place?
Yes, and they have a plan in place
Okay,
too.
okay.
And looking at that, consolidating their engineering into a building that's an engineering building is part of that plan.
Was the plan that the additional 230 students basically absorb that surplus?
It will absorb most of it. Most of it.
Any other comments or questions? This is consideration for the committee approval. Have a motion?
So moved.
Have a second? Have a motion and a second for the committee to approve the renovation of Fowler Hall. This is subject to the condition of meeting the space plan that's been submitted to the board. Any other comments or questions? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. All opposed, motion carries. Thank you. The next item is also from page here, Midwestern State University. It is to renovate the D.L. Ligon Coliseum. Okay. Go ahead.
D.L. Ligon Coliseum was built in 1969. It has a total gross square feet of 117. I think assignable is about 82,000. The programs listed include kinesiology, intramural sports, athletics, commencement, and many other activities. It has significant deferred maintenance and ADA compliance needs. This was a project that initially was targeted at costing us 12 to 13 million. We pared it down given the reduced state appropriations for this TRB project. But the project scope includes asbestos abatement, code compliance, mechanical systems replacement, and that's the bulk of it. 7.7 million. It's HVAC, plumbing, electrical, fire alarm and sprinkler systems, roofing, and we're not including the dome roof. We're including some flat roofs. All kinds of architectural needs in terms of energy efficiency concerns, windows, doors, bathrooms. Seating is a significant problem. Corridor seating is also a significant problem.
That pretty much covers it.
Okay. There's, I need to correct under standard 1, that should be NA since this is a renovation. should not have been marked meets approval. The other 4 standards for this project are met. Again, this was pending additional information from the site visit, Ms. Brown.
And from the site visit, it's very obvious that this building does need some renovation. So we will approval of the evaluation.
Okay, so the staff recommendation then is to approve, for the committee to approve renovation of DL Ligon? Ligon, I'll get that right in a minute. Ligon Coliseum. Any comments or questions? Have a motion? Have a second? Have a motion second to approve this. This again would be subject to the condition of meeting the surplus plan, since that's related to the previous project. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you for being here. Good luck in your project. Okay, our next item is from Stephen F. Austin State University. And Dr. Baker Patel is here? Okay, good. This is a project to construct an education research center.
Mr. Chair and other committee members, good morning. I would like to introduce Mr. Lee Britton, who's director of our physical plant, who's with us this morning. And first, I would like to say to Commissioner Paredes, we appreciate you remembering the fact that we did win the Star Award and giving us that plug. And the name that you might be looking for, his name is Robin Wright, in providing the assistance, correct? I appreciate the opportunity to appear before you this morning to make some comments about our proposal. As many of you probably know, Stephen F. Austin State University was actually created in 1923. Through the years, we have become a comprehensive university in many areas, but primarily we have always remained a teacher education college, very, very strong in that particular area. This is a request that we have before you today to combine the elementary education department, our early childhood program, our charter school, and a research component into one particular building. We're very proud of our education unit on our campus. In fact, it basically comprises 1/3 of our student body. We have close to 4,000 students in that particular college. We have about 1,500 students who are in the teacher certification program, and in fact, elementary education is our largest major on campus. We have approximately 1,200 students in that particular program. In regard to the early childhood program, I would tell you we have something very unique on our campus. We take babies who are 5 to 6 weeks of age and place them in that particular school, and they're able to remain there until they reach 5 years of age. And you can understand in a community like Nacogdoches the demand on people trying to get their children in that early childhood lab. And of course, they benefit from having the very best of teachers there in that laboratory. They have the student teachers that are working there also. You have people from all the public schools that are in, observing, and et cetera, and other people throughout the university. Then when a child is 5 years of age, we have a charter school in Nacogdoches, and unless something's changed, we may still be the only one that has a charter school in conjunction with the public school in regard to the university. We've done that since 1998. A very, very successful program there through the 5th grade now. What this program would do would allow us to double that particular program. Instead of one classroom through the K through the 5th grade, we would have 2 in each area, which we would be able to double our population in that particular area. So we're very, very proud of that. I will tell you that the charter school in Nacogdoches is always at the exemplary classification every year. In fact, it's the only one always in Nacogdoches. It's the exemplary rating. I would also go back and simply mention on elementary education, we're consistently at the basically 100% pass rate on the teacher exams. So you can see we're extremely proud. What we want to do is combine all of these units on campus into one building, and we think that'll give us many benefits. We add a research component that we've not been that strong in before, but this will expand the area. We're especially strong in rural education. We have approximately $15 million worth of grants at the present time in education. We're working with the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, in a research project because of the area that we're in. So basically, that's the proposal we bring to you to allow us to spend the $20.1 million that has been approved as a tuition revenue bond, and we will pay the remainder out of it of bonding Heath money.
Okay.
Mr. Adams.
This, thank you, this meets 4 of the 5 standards of the Corning Board. It does not meet the space need. However, there is a plan in place to address that. So this recommendation from the staff is subject to that condition. Any questions or comments of Dr. Patella?
Question, how many children does the early childhood development laboratory class?
The early childhood program itself has approximately probably 70 some odd in there. Those are the ones that are babies up through that grade. And then when they go over into the other program, combined about 213.
At the charter school?
Yes, the charter school, yes, sir.
Other comments or questions? Chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second? Have a motion and a second to approve this, subject to the condition. This is the Construct Education Research Center. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Sean. We'd love for you to come to Nacogdoches and see our new facility. We're dedicated to turning out teachers.
Good luck to you. Sounds like a great project. All right, our next item. Yes, sir.
Before we move on, I purposely waited till the end of this list of projects to ask the question. On none of these projects did any of us bring up the question about space utilization, although there were several that don't meet our guidelines. I know we've talked about this before. My question is, are we doing something about updating those guidelines that we think are somewhat, I guess, far off to begin with?
We have a group in place that's starting to meet. We're getting a lot of, there's a lot of discussions being generated, both for and against, and what all needs to be included in the space model, and what we already collect, and what we should not be collecting anymore, and what we need to add to that collection to get actual, I'd say, better numbers that we feel more confident in before we start applying them or looking at going back to any type of a standard versus a guideline.
Probably more projects than not.
Do not. There's only
2006 guide.
Right, and that's I think we had 2, maybe 3 two institutions that actually met the classroom guideline. There were probably 6 or 7 that met the lab guideline because it is lower. You're not going to use your labs as much as your classrooms. So that is something we are looking at, though.
Susan, when do you think we'll have a relevant guideline, since we're basically just ignoring it for now?
Getting agreement, I'm going to say this one might take a little while to get agreement on. We have been working on it, and we've been going back and forth on what we can collect, what should we bother to collect, and
there's at least one opinion per institution.
Per institution, we have a minimum of 35 out there. So,
when do you think you'll have something?
I would like to say by the January board meeting.
Okay.
But
we'll shoot for January.
We're trying. Yeah.
Okay. The next 3 items are consideration of adopting commissioner recommendations to the board relating to amendments of board rules. There's a goldenrod supplemental agenda item showing the comments that have been received since the agenda material was printed. Okay, item 2H, this agenda item is relating to amendments to section 17.1013A concerning campus planning. This amendment would set up an annual uniform reporting date for the status of all approved facility projects and to completion. Why don't you tell us about the amendment and the comments?
Okay, the amendment, basically the statute reads that they will be sending us an annual update when the project is approved, which would mean 4 different times during the year. The staff thought it would be easier for them to give us an update annually. The schools agreed that one update, actually the schools suggested that an annual update of all projects at one time after the end of the fiscal year might be the best way to do it. We've gotten comments from Texas Tech and from from Texas Tech mainly. And Mike is here to comment, so if you want to ask him questions about it, he'll be glad to comment, knowing Mike. We've gotten Mike's comment. We actually called some of the other institutions, and they said that November was better for them because it was after the fiscal year. So
Well, I think we all agree doing it one time a year is better. You know, my suggestion originally was do it on the 1st of July when the MP1s are due. Because I handle the MP1s, I think Jeff responded back and said this was time kind of, what I read your thing was time with the MP2 and 4 reports. And my challenge is the institutions do the MP2s and 4s, I don't. Yeah, one date's better than any of the rest. Just as on the anniversary.
And what we're proposing, what the staff originally proposed was June 1, or it was, let's see,
No, there was,
July.
no, we had originally, this is the change just to go from the date of approval. So they would get it, 4 times a year to a single day. And
I think we all
the November 1.
Better.
Okay.
I was just lazy and said I'm already doing a report on the 1st of July, so I could put it in there pretty easily.
Well, we're glad that you admit the rationale behind your position.
Full disclosure is
We all of a sudden do not have a quorum. So the consensus is one date, and the staff recommendation that be November 1.
Right.
Okay.
And then we have some other reports that are due in October, and this allows them to do it along when they're turning in their other fiscal reports, which are the 4.
Okay. Now that we do have a quorum, okay, good. So the recommendation of the staff, consistent with the input from the institutions, is one date, and that date be November 1. What's the pleasure of the committee?
I'll move approval of the staff recommendation.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to amend this rule for one date on reporting, and that date be November 1 of each year, and that would be beginning in '07. Any other comments or questions? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. The next item on our agenda is 2I, and that's this agenda item amends section 17.32B, again concerning campus planning. This amendment would apply current and applicable industry cost standards for facility projects based on industry standards. And I think we have as well some comments in the institution this round.
Okay. We have been in the past using the RS Means report. We are now looking at and starting to use the engineering news report. I guess I don't know if it's a report. Engineering news. The facilities people have talked to us, and we're looking at the possibility of also doing a internal to the state look at the building costs and maybe doing some more analysis using that. And so we're trying to leave ourselves some room to either use the U.S. News Weekly or to use cost data that we develop internally in conjunction with the institutions and what they're finding, because it is changing so rapidly. And that's where we're coming from on that one, and not tie ourselves just to the RS Means.
So the proposed rule would be based that on industry standards. The comments were, though, as to, and the questions raised is what's the industry standard, because apparently there's more than one.
Right, and this was the engineering news record.
Right, and it is the engineering news record, the one that we all want to.
That's what the consensus that we've gotten from the field at this point has been that engineering news record is the one that we want to
In order
use.
there be clarity, should we not include that in the rule itself?
And we can do that.
Okay.
Or, another alternative might be just to include in the rule that the staff will publish the sources for the industry standards being used.
I don't have a problem with that. That way it gets some flexibility. Yeah, I don't have a problem.
50, 60, 70-year-old, construction publication by McGraw-Hill, but
Why don't we say based on industry standards as published by the coordinating board periodically? Council, is that okay with you?
I'm ready.
Okay, any other discussion? Chair will entertain a motion.
Move the amended recommendation.
Second. We have a motion second to approve the staff's recommendation with added language after the word standards as published, what we also say is as published periodically by the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign, motion carries. Okay. And the next item is item 2J. This agenda item is related to amendments to section 21.7355B2 concerning waiver programs for certain non-resident persons. This amendment would remove the stipulation requiring the institution to have a surplus of space above the amount predicted space calculated by the latest space projection model. Ms. Brown?
Okay, this one is actually has to do, came to our attention mainly because of Lamar University. They enrolled quite a few students from Louisiana area. When the space model was recalculated in fall of 2005, it included all of their students from Louisiana, and that gave them a space deficit for the first time in many years, and which kicked this statute into place, which they could not offer in-state tuition. When we looked at the statute did not support using the space model at all. It just said it would be reasonable allocation, that it would not harm any of the other institutions. When we look at it a little bit further, using the space model as a reason that it's going to harm another institution didn't really seem to make sense, and we couldn't find any of the staff that had been here when that was put in place that understood why it was put in place that way. So because the statute doesn't mention the space model as a way of being a reasonable guideline, we decided that it would probably be better to take it out and not have it, and just be able to look at it at a case-by-case basis on whether it would harm other institutions.
Okay. We have one comment from University of Texas at Permian Basin that supports the rule. Okay. It's the pleasure of the committee.
So moved.
A motion to approve the staff recommendation. Second. Any other comments or discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. Okay, the last item on our agenda is Ellicott, Texas Tech University is here to make some comments, and this emanates out, I think, a question really that Fred Hellenfeld asked at the last meeting on some issues related to construction costs. You're going to get as far behind him as you can.
My decision was if he falls, I'll hide behind the body.
Well, I'm going to call on Mr. Ellicott, who's a man of few words, to make the presentation.
The chair has pointed out I am adjournment, so I'll talk quick. I think the original request was to talk about project management fees and design fees, and as Susan and I talked about what we should do, we thought we'd expand a little bit to talk about all project costs, because we want to make sure we're all using the same term and there's clear understanding as to what we're talking about when we talk quickly. We are talking, next slide please. We are talking about the management of multi-year, multi-million-dollar construction projects, which is a different animal than a lot of other projects going on out there. We deal in project costs, not just construction costs. As an aside, I am personally willing to buy the seat next to my chancellor on any airplane he flies, so no one will sit next to him and say, oh, I could build that for $139 a square foot. That's a challenge. We talk about complete projects because we do the tenant fit out, we put in the furniture and furnishings, we install the phones and data systems and all that, as opposed to just the core and shell and then negotiate a lease for tenant fit out. We generally look at life cycle cost as opposed to just the first cost. A lot of discussion about lead, and there's a lot of that. Generally, we're looking for the best value, not necessarily the lowest cost. And so, for example, switching to the ENR, I think will help a long way in explaining that. And finally, we build to the building to last. We build it to keep, and we build it to last. And then the question that was related to this is, why do you cost what you cost? Well, I mean, we are public entities, and so we publicly advertise for and very competitively select contractors, using the term generically, professional service providers, construction contractors. They are required to prepare and submit comprehensive qualifications or proposals and be interviewed in most cases. They obtain the required bonds and insurance. They pay the prevailing wage with the appropriate benefits, follow all the rules. They are inspected, tested, audited, any word you like that, and generally are required to do good work and do good work for us. And so I think all of those things are reflected in the costs you see when we come before you. Total project costs are in general hard costs, which are bricks and mortars, things that stay on the project in general, and soft costs, the fees and services. And there's an asterisk on FF, furniture, furnishings, and equipment. Some folks consider that a hard cost, some don't. I think it's a hard cost because when I walk away and turn the building over, the furniture and furnishings and equipment are in there. Generally, at least for Texas Tech, and a few of my friends I hope are still behind me who can comment on theirs, we generally budget about 75% for hard costs, 25% for soft costs. In that soft cost is about 10%, and we've looked over the past 3 or 4 years, and at the end of the project, about 83% of the budget generally ends up as a hard cost and about 17% in the soft cost. And that's over the past 3 or 4 years that we've been sort of tracking that sort of thing. When we submit our coordinating board application, it's broken up into 3 areas. The first is building costs, and you can see the list there. New construction, repair, and renovation. Generally, that's pretty clear. There's always a little gray area with those two things if they intersect, and we just sort of draw a line on the drawings and do it that way. Site acquisition, generally the cost of the real property, the land or the building that we're buying. Fixed equipment are things that are bolted to the building but create the building, or change the building for a specific use. Casework, fume hoods, fixed seating in an auditorium, that's what we consider to be the fixed equipment. I mean, things like chillers and air handlers, that sort of stuff, that's in the construction cost of the building. Site development, parking, landscaping, utilities, road work. Texas Tech has a 1% set aside for landscape enhancements, and we put that in the site development. Furniture and movable equipment, it's furniture, furnishings, and equipment, but it's also the electronic equipment to make the voice and the data systems work, AV equipment, and again, Tech has a 1% set aside for public art, and we put that in the FF&E budget. Construction services, we use that as in-house labor, and that's related to utility shutdowns. We generally do those off hours, so there's some overtime involved in doing that. In-house lock and key preparation, small asbestos abatement, signage, that sort of thing that we do in-house. Life safety compliancy, generally if it's a major new construction or repair and renovation project, that we include those things in the construction cost. If it's sort of a specialized project or, an unrelated life safety upgrade, then we would include fire alarms, fire sprinklers in the separate line item. Okay, next slide. Professional services fees, architects, engineers, landscape architects for designing our facilities. The project management system, and we'll talk more about that. Project management contract, that's why one of my good friends is sitting next to me, because he's just had some recent experience with contracting out for that. Other professional fees, surveys, geotech studies, material testing, preparation of stormwater prevention plans. Those are all professional fees outside of the design contract. Administrative costs, for us, the big 3 are advertising, permits and inspections for TDLR, TCEQ, and the major one is usually moving costs, relocating people in and out of the building. And then property acquisition fees, we include in that brokerage fees, appraisals, and things like that. The additional cost, demolition, cost of eminent domain, we haven't had to do that. Someone who has done that lately maybe can talk about those. Environmental development, that's where we would put the cost of environmental assessments, and if we have major abatement, where we hire a contractor to come in and do some abatement, we would put in there. The contingency, other costs, we generally don't have any of those. Some folks back here apparently include debt service costs in there. At Tech, I get a project budget, and the debt service, the cost of the debt is handled elsewhere. Usually the money I get is discounted to handle the fact that it's borrowed money. Okay, looking quickly at the FB&C offices to compare them. and if I have not got the number right from my friends, I apologize, but I think that kind of shows the size of the program, in terms of dollar size, number of active projects, the size of the staff, the annual operating budget for the FP&C office, and the number of E&G gross square footage on the campus. And obviously, there's a lot of auxiliary space that's not included in that. The next page sort of shows averaged fees, and I need to give credit to Dave Dixon from University of Texas for putting this thing together. In both Texas Tech and the University of Texas, we have different fees for new construction and repair and renovation. Repair and renovation projects, in our opinion, are inherently more expensive, so those fees are 133% of the new construction fee. So you can see, in general, we're all in the same ballpark. The next page attempts to show that perhaps the best way to say it, each facility plan construction organization is asked to do different things by its chancellor, president, or governing board, and so we all provide slightly different services, and I think that reflects that, and the different size of the program reflects the difference in our fees. Anybody want to correct what I've got up there?
Does that mean that I notice here that under landscape and public art that UT and A&M are trying to keep up with Texas Tech?
Yes, sir. That'd be it.
I think in this one particular case, that's a good program. I really do.
It should be noted that in Lubbock, they were starting from scratch.
And well, that's true too.
In response, I would like to point out there is life west of I-35.
Moving right along.
Okay, so the next chart, that shows this is the Texas Tech facility planning construction fee chart. And you can see the fee is a function of new construction on top, repair and renovation on the bottom. The project, as you move from left to right, the projects get more complicated and the fee goes up. As you move from bottom to top, the projects get bigger and therefore the percent fee goes down because there are certain fixed costs. You have a kickoff, medium, and other size of the project. This is approved by the Board of Regents. We update it annually. We haven't made a change since May of 2002. At that point in time, I lost all my external funding. I'm entirely fee supported, and I picked up support of the public art program and its committee.
Just let me interrupt. Or this is really a question for Virgil. Does A&M have a sliding scale table like this, or is the A&M system use 3.75 as a flat fee across the board?
Yes, we use 3.75 for all project costs, period.
Whether 25 or 100 million, whether it
does not matter.
Or complex.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And I forgot to point out, you should have all received the Dave Dixon chart here. Let's see, I need to make two corrections. If you look under Texas A&M, interior design is also at 3.75%, not the 10.75%. And no work is charged on an hourly basis for those things as shown at the bottom. That would be good news. Then over at UNT.
I might add before you talk about UNT, that's a recent change since I've arrived on the scene. One of the reorganizational mandates that I took was to look at our fee structure, and we reduced those fees on furnishings. And also, the reason I stated that Mr. Dan Kennedy, who was here with me, was the director of the new planning division. We've actually set up a formal planning division now, and Dan is doing that. And we do not charge for planning services for our component campuses and agencies.
Good. And then under University of North Texas, the note 1 should say fee is now taken on A&E and engineering contracts. Correct. We go to the next slide. One of the challenges, at least in the FP&C system at Texas Tech, I'm not sure the others, obviously my expenses occur continuously throughout the year. I collect fee at discrete events, as shown on that list. The HEAP and federal funds, because of the way they're treated, I get a % of each invoice. And the challenge that presents is about half of the work is done before I sign, half of the internal project management work is done during design before I sign the construction contract, so the expense significantly leads the revenue. And that's why we came up with the 50-30-20 plan was to get revenue up front, because we were running about a $2 million deficit when I first got to Texas Tech. And now I try to keep a 3 or 4 month operating reserve. And the last kind of shows a chart. This is the one we use to manage our operating budget and our operating balance. And the blue line is kind of the significant one. That represents our operating balance. It would be the black line in your handout sheet. And you can see if I kept staffing at the current level and there were no new projects, if the committee and the board were not kind enough to approve any new projects, I would run out of money toward the end of, about the last month of fiscal year 10. And so that's about where it's been, and there's fortunately always new projects, but we watch that because obviously if the beauty of a fee-for-service organization is you can manage staffing and workload, and so you've got to watch those things. And we had a peak a couple years ago, and since that time I've had a couple project managers and associate vice chancellor have left that I've not replaced because the workload is going down. My athletic director is helping solve that problem for me, so we may be back. But that's the kind of thing that we watch. The real number that I kind of use, if you go to the next one, is I was looking for a simple number to manage, and something my organization and the people with hire and fire authority could look at. And so I have been for a while taking the placement rate of completed projects only. So since I've been there 7.5 years or so, we've completed $488 million in projects. That's $5.5 million per month. Those of you who've been around for a while will know there weren't too many dollars those first several months. And I've spent $18.9 million in that 7.5 years managing that $488 million. That's a 3.9% overhead rate. That's actually a little high in my defense. This July, when I finished my $37 million clinical building, increased the denominator to 525. Then that goes to 3.6%, and that's where it's been for about the past 2 years, 3.6 to 3.7. And that number, the denominator, does not include work in project. We've got about $125 million in projects in progress, a couple $100 million in projects that we're designing. That's not in there. So, in other words, my fee chart and what I'm actually charging for completed projects seem to be in order, and that seems to be a number we can track. Just to show you the yearly variation, last year was obviously a very good year in terms of completing projects. So, my 1.8% overhead rate looks like a hero, but you really got to kind of go over the long term. Okay.
And I keep talking. Any questions?
Yeah. First of all, this is good information, I think, related to the question that you asked Fred at the last meeting, and in terms of having an understanding of what each of the institutions are obviously a little bit different in terms of how they approach these projects. But certainly welcome, Virgil, Rich, any of you folks would like to say anything else in terms of what Mike has said. Okay.
I would just like to stress that each institution, as Mike says, again, asked the organizations to do different things. The size of the programs and the sort of the mathematical, the power of the numbers in terms also has an influence on funds available. Sure. And primarily even from the financial management part of it in terms of Mike talked about a 3 to 4 month reserve. Years ago at A&M System, they used to try to keep like a 6 or 7 month reserve. I think right now, when I got there, they were at the zero reserve. The system was utilizing all funds for whatever. The Chancellor has agreed to go back and working with me to establish a reserve policy again. So these things really flow in and out depending on the different methodologies between the institutions. And I'd just like to really echo that. But I did find it telling that you're looking at your 3.6 or so forth. That's pretty close to our 375. And it seems to be a reasonable number across the board.
I think it's also important to know that you folks talk to each other and you work with each other, and I think that's critical. I think a number of people around the state would not realize that, but I think the relationship that y'all have is critical to your institutions because you can share best practices and other issues. So thank you for that input, and thank you for the time, Mike and Virgil and Rich, all of you for doing that. I want to echo Lillian. We wish you well.
going to the University of Houston main campus, and you've been with us, what, 5, 6 years? 2? 2? Oh, I thought it was longer than that. Okay, 2 years. Seems like 5 maybe, okay. Particularly the last 6 months maybe, but we wish you well. And also, before I adjourn, Mr. Ransom and I will be rotating off the board in August, and this will be the last meeting that I will chair of the Strategic Planning Committee. And I want to again thank the staff, as I did at the last board meeting. I had a chance to visit with some of them last night at dinner, and Mike and Rich and Virgil, all of y'all, all of the various institutions. I know I speak for Curtis. We thank you for working with our staff to provide quality facilities for the citizens of this state to participate in higher education. We really appreciate that. If there is any other business to come before the committee, hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second? All in favor say aye. Motion carries. Thank you.